You guys are live.
Okay, thank you. If I could approval of our previous public service meeting minutes.
Motion to approve previous meeting minutes.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 We have 4 pieces before us today. 1 second, I got too many screens open. One second, if I can find them. First piece. Oh, no, that's not it. 1 second. I can't find the legislation. Give me a second. Here we go. Okay, first piece. Ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service or his designee after publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts for the maintenance of city-owned street lighting and declaring an emergency. Mr. Lettle?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of committee. This is a 3-year project, or we're going to bid this for 3 years on our maintenance for our city-owned streetlights. As you know, there's about 25,000 streetlights in the city of Akron. We own and maintain about 1,900 of those streetlights. So what Mayor Horgan has done since he's came into office 5 years ago, made it a priority to upgrade these streetlights to LED as we move along. So in this project, this is not only maintaining and repairing, replacing lamps as they go out. We are looking at to upgrade these fixtures to LED, which will extend the life and will reduce the cost, and obviously to provide a better a light in these corridors. So to give you the biggest majority of these lights are Route 59. That's a state route, but it's our responsibility to maintain those lights. Route 8 from the interchange north to the Corp line of Cuyahoga Falls, that is a state route, but it's not a federal highway, and 224. So if you take those 3 corridors and then you take the underpasses, which are bridges and where we have lights under that, that is a large majority of the LEDs that are not been upgraded yet. So what this project will entail is we're going to bid it obviously locally and try to attract a minority firm if possible. We've talked to the union to try to attract that type of company to bid on this project. So that's what you're allowing today is the bidding of this maintenance of street-owned streetlights. But the 23,000, they're owned by Edison, okay? So they are owned by Edison and they maintain those streetlights. As probably most of you have gotten calls, there's a street light out here or there, and then we pass those on to Edison or 311 does.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lettle. Are there any questions from any committee members? Councilman Lombardo?
Thank you. Mr. Lettle, so again, just to reiterate, 25,000 streetlights, we own about 1,900, and it's Route 59, Route 8, and 224 is what we're going to be replacing. And every bridge or underpass within those corridors or within the city?
Well, it's within the city. So
okay,
we have some underpasses like Barges Street on the towpath trail. That underpass may not have, we have to maintain those lights. So when we say street lights, everybody thinks of a light on a pole. But when I say it's all underpasses, like Market Street over the towpath trail, those have lights on them. So those are a roof mounted light. So
yeah,
our goal in this project is, it's 885,000. We typically on those highway corridors go through and change those lamps every 4 years. As you know, high pressure sodium or metal halide, even though they're on, they lose a lot of their looms where LEDs do not. Plus LEDs burn cooler and they save, obviously save energy. So will we get
Okay.
them all replaced in these 3 years? It all depends how the prices come in. One thing we're going to be doing in the Edgewood home area, there's 144 streetlights. We are going to replace those as they go out. But when you're on the expressway with truck and backup trucks and setup, it makes more sense to replace them all at one time. They won't all be replaced this year, to be clear, but we're hoping over the next 3 years to get most of those replaced.
Okay, so, so an underpass, another example would be, Gorge Boulevard and, Route 8 by Gorge Boulevard and, Cuyahoga Falls Avenue. That's
Correct.
an underpass, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then, I know I travel Route 8 frequently, so Route 8 is really bad between heading up south to the, central interchange. And I'll look at 59, but I know Route 8, if that could be one of the first on the list, there's plenty of them out.
Okay, we can look
Thank
at
you.
that. Yep. But to be clear, Madam Chairman, you know, when we redid Innovation Way and what OID is doing with Great Streets, we're updating a lot of these areas to LED, working with First Energy. So OID has been driving that too, to get some of these corridors upgraded to LED.
Okay, duly noted. Any other questions from committee members? Any questions from council members? Councilman Malik?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Luddle, thank you for this information. I guess I was just wondering, like, what kind of firm are you guys looking at? Like, what kind of firm might do this kind of work? It seems like a little bit of unusual kind of work.
It's electrical contractor. So it's typically, you know, electrical contractors that have the equipment, because you need trucks, obviously bucket trucks. So when you see Edison out there, there's contractors in town that have that equipment. And I'm hoping they bid on it and attract some local labor. That's why we've engaged with the union to work on this. So the bids were actually due Wednesday and we've extended it a week. They've asked for an extension so they can attract more local businesses to bid on this.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions from any council members? Don't see any, I don't think. Nope. What's your pleasure?
Consent's fine.
Consent? Can I get a motion for consent?
Motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, our next piece is ordinance ratifying the actions of the Director of Public Service in contracting with Kenmore Construction to repair the lining of an existing stationary sewer along the Little Cuyahoga River west of the Home Avenue Bridge, authorizing payment therefore, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Lettle?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. If you remember a couple years ago, Kenmore Construction replaced the bridge at the intersection of Arlington and Home Avenue for the county. Well, we have a sewer that was actually underground, under that bridge and under the river right there that tied into where we had Rack 13, which we separated a few years ago. So in the project, they were going to build piers, hang this sewer and reroute it because of the condition of our sewer. So engineering got involved and we, the company that TVs our sewers start looking at it. They got Kenmore down there and they did some investigation and they actually were able to repair that sewer in place in the river. So they worked with the Army Corps. They opened up the sewer. They replaced part of it. The long short of it is this is for $273,000. We actually saved $200,000 by doing it this way. So it's partial replacement, partial lining to rehabilitate this sewer. And there again, part of our consent decree, it was identified that we had to make these repairs. So we saved a couple $100,000. The work has been done. This sewer is 1915 vintage, so it's a little over 100 years old. But the rehabilitation will be good for another 50, 60 years.
Okay, any questions from committee members? Any question from council members? Seeing none, what's your pleasure, Mr. Little?
Consent's fine.
Okay, can I get a motion for consent?
Motion for consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, our next piece is ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the purchase of materials and services needed by various divisions and departments of the city for a period of time not to exceed 5 years, approving the specifications therefore and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. I will be speaking on this. Thank you, Councilwoman Samples and members of the committee. Before you, please find the 2021 bid ordinance. In November 2020, I'm sure you guys are all aware, but just a reminder, the City of Akron voters amended the city charter to require only expenditures in excess of $50,000 to first be authorized by council and awarded to the lowest and best responsible bidders. Because of this change, we took a substantial amount of time to review the bid and the no bid ordinance. Before you is the bid ordinance. This ordinance lists all the commodities and services that the city estimates will need to be purchased this year that exceed the $50,000 threshold. Instead of bringing legislation into you throughout the year for all of these items or services that will need to be competitively bid, we have traditionally introduced one piece that lists all of the items that will need to be bid throughout the year to keep our departments operating and running smoothly. This list was expanded this year as we took a long look at, like I said, what was on the no bid before. We moved some items over to the bid ordinance. We also removed some items that did not hit the new $50,000 threshold. Any items that are not on this list, but which come up throughout the year that will need to be competitively bid, will come before council on a separate piece of legislation. These are the expenditures that we know we are going to have. We're going to have custodial contracts. We know we're going to have to buy certain chemicals for our water supply. And we know that we're going to have to competitively bid those. So like I said, we put those all on one piece and we bring them to you and we ask for permission to go forward and competitively bid those. So this is that piece. The purchasing department's also been working on being more inclusive and equitable. We've been sending all competitive bids to the Urban League so that they can outreach to their vendors and work with them to bid on our opportunities, as well as we are posting everything on the Inclusion Marketplace that was launched by the Akron Chamber. So myself and Sean Volman is on this call. He is our acting purchasing agent. We're willing to take any questions that you guys may have on this piece.
Thank you, Shelley. Any questions from any committee members? Any questions from council members? Councilman Mallett?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Goodrich, for the information. I think two questions. First of all, I think it's this bid ordinance here is for 5 years, I think, and the amount on the UCR is, I think, 18 million. Is there a way of getting a kind of rough estimate on the materials and services on, what the estimated amount is for each of those line items?
Absolutely. The only one that's actually going to go 5 years, which we increased it from 3 to 5 years, is the golf course, the golf cart rental. We traditionally do that on a 5-year basis, and that is up this year. So that's why we did move it from 3 years to 5 years. And then I do have a spreadsheet that estimates the amount, per commodity that I can send over to you.
Thank you. And just the second question, I know that, looking at this traditionally, there are a lot of things that are materials, and then there are some things that are services.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any things that historically have been brought individually to council that are now being put on this list? And then also, what is the thought process, especially when it comes to services, whether to bring that as an individual piece of legislation versus bringing it as part of this consolidated piece?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of things that we moved from the no bid that was not being bid to the bid ordinance. For example, this year we are for asbestos abatement and asbestos assessment. That is something that we traditionally did not bid, but it's over the $50,000 threshold. There is a market to bid it, so we are going to bid it. So there was an evaluation done on things such as that. In regards to services, like we have a ton of custodial contracts that it would be really a lot of legislation coming to council if we were to individually bring the pieces in for every single custodial contract we did. There's some other services contracts, landscaping maintenance, and items that it would just be a lot of legislation if we were bringing the pieces in. Now, keep in mind, they all still go to Board of Control, which Councilman Kamer is on the Board of Control. So we, once we do send it out for competitive bid, we get back the bids before it can be awarded. It does go to Board of Control, which is Mondays, at 11:30. If you ever want to tune in to Board of Control, please feel free to. But I think we've traditionally done it this way because of the amount of contracts that are flowing through the purchasing division. And if we had to bring those individually, it would weigh down you guys' agenda. So.
Thank you so much, Ms. Goodrich.
No
I
problem.
appreciate it. I guess the only other comment I would have, Madam Chair, is that maybe it would be worth us taking a week and kind of discussing, are there particular things on here that council might want to review individually, or is council comfortable with having all these things consolidated? Because I agree, many of them are pretty run-of-the-mill things, but there are some things that it might be worth us taking a second look.
Okay. Shelley, does a week work for you all so we could take a in-depth look at the line items?
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. And if there's any more questions, please feel free to contact me about the individual line items. I will send over the estimation per commodity, but it is just an estimation. So that we use to come up with the $18 million figure for the bid ordinance.
Okay, sounds good. Can I get a motion for time?
Motion for time.
Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Our next and final piece is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into an agreement or agreements without the formality of advertising for bids for the purchase of miscellaneous supplies, services, repair parts, and labor for machinery and equipment used by various divisions and departments of the city for a period of 1 year, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
All right, so this is the no bid ordinance that I was just referring to. So the list of items on this piece are items which the departments estimate they will spend over $50,000, thus triggering council oversight, but for which there is not the opportunity or market for it to be competitively bid. For example, the single highest item on this list is postage. The city cannot competitively bid postage as the United States Postal Service has a monopoly on that item. Other items on this list that represent things that must be serviced or purchased are, for example, our VACON trucks. We only have one vendor that we can go to who is the authorized dealer in Northeast Ohio. So if we need to purchase VACON trucks or we need any kind of service done on those, we have to go to that authorized dealer. The other item you'll see on here that I want to draw your attention to is items that we are procuring in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Nitrile gloves are an item that we would normally do by sealed competitive bid. However, with the pandemic, vendors will not lock in prices for even a year. They will only lock prices in for a very short period of time, sometimes 15 days to 30 days, making it a waste of resources for the purchasing department to go through the arduous process of sealed bidding when we are unable to lock pricing for an extended amount of time. So you will notice that this list is quite reduced from the no bid that we have brought to council in the past. This is due to the increased threshold for council approval, as well as holistic changes that are being made in the purchasing division to be more inclusive and equitable with our spend. I do want to note we will be bringing a motor equipment no bid to you all in the coming weeks, as that is one area where operational needs demand, that motor equipment contact a multitude of places to get the parts they need quickly to fix our vehicles and heavy equipment to get them back on the road. But it did not make sense to include it in this piece because we did bring a separate piece for them last year. So we're going to be doing that this year. So if you look at this list, I can answer any questions that you guys may have on individual items. These are items that we identified that we simply, there's not a market for competitive bidding.
I have a question, Sally.
Sure.
I'll say Sally. So I'm looking down here where various departments, the last page, I believe, maybe not the page before last, where you have publication in various newspapers of general circulation.
Mhm.
I see Gatehouse, Reporter, Akron Legal News, and Leader Publications. I do not see the Beacon Journal in here. So are we not running ads with the Beacon Journal anymore? Is that something that has to come in separately?
The
Or
Beacon is actually Gatehouse. That's their
okay,
legal name.
legal
Yeah.
name. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's again another area where those are our newspaper general circulation. So when we need to publish things, those are really the vendors that we utilize. So that's something that again we can't bid if we have to publish something. Those are the publications we tend to utilize.
All right. Okay. All righty. Any questions from any committee members?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Shelley, I have a question for Ms. Goodrich. What are police cruiser build outs?
Yeah, I actually have Captain McCosey on here if he wants to give you a little detail about that. I've learned about that recently as well, so he can touch on that.
All right. Falls Way provides us with a couple of different things there. One is specific parts from Havas. Over the years, we have done a tremendous amount of testing, evaluation, and building out of cruisers using Havas technology. Havas is the manufacturer of all that equipment. That includes all the consoles inside the cars, the cages, the seats that go in the back and whatnot. So that's the build out parts or the materials. In addition, we have had occasion where we had Fallsway do a part of the build out themselves. This time around for 2020, we had a few cruisers come in that we needed the doorpost of the car drilled so that we could put the spotlights, those little spotlights in the front, and they have the technology to do that. So we had them do those things. From time to time, if we really got jammed up and we're trying to replace cars and can't get them on the road in a reasonable amount of time, Fallsway can actually put the cars together for us. It is quite a process to build out a cruiser from the stripped down version that we get to road ready with stickers and lights and whatnot. Fallsway is the place that we go for all of our parts. And when we're in a jam, they can actually help us put them together so we can get these on the road a little quicker. So I don't know if that answers your question, sir.
That's fine. Yes.
Other questions from committee members? Any questions from council members? Councilman Mallett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to comment that, I know there's been a lot of work on the no bid ordinance and the whole purchasing process over the last year. And so, just want to really say that I appreciate that from, Mr. Bowman and Ms. Goodrich. And I'm sure many other folks in the finance department. So thank you.
All right. Shelley, what's your pleasure for this piece?
Consent is fine.
Okay. Can I get a motion for consent?
Motion for
moved.
consent.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it. And I think that is it for public service. We have nothing else coming before us, so we are adjourned.
Our next committee of the day is the Public Safety Committee meeting. Those committee members are Kamer, Samples, Swirsky, Malik, and McKittrick. All members are present except for Swirsky. We can get started whenever you're ready, Mr. Kamer.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I'll go ahead and move forward and call the public safety meeting order. Like you said, all members are present except for Councilman Swirsky. We do have one item in front of us, but can I get the approval of our last meeting and the minutes, please?
Motion to approve previous minutes.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. So we do have one new piece in front of us. It's an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract with the Oriana House, Inc., Incorporated for confinement, rehabilitation services, and alternative sentencing options for certain offenders convicted with violations of the Akron Municipal Code and declare an emergency. I do have several members with us, and I'll turn it over to, I guess, Bernie. If Bernie wants to start, or Sean Bowman.
Yes, hi. I will just the quick introduction. Sean Bowman with the City of Akron Law Department, as well as helping out with purchasing these days. Every year we come to you with an agreement with Oriana House to provide alternate sentencing, the community alternate sentencing program that they have, as well as other items such as in-home monitoring and testing and the like, day reporting. We're back again. It's hard to believe it's been a year again, but it's time to redo this contract. And I think you all received the materials that Mr. Rochford provided with us with the program and the things that they're continuing to do and changes that they're making due to circumstances that occurred over the past year. We are looking for the same amount of money as the maximum as last year, which was $2.7 million. And I will turn over, if there are any questions about the program itself, Bernie Rochford's here and he's more than happy to help.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I'd like to turn it over just to Bernie so he can just give us a brief introduction of himself and overview, and then we can take questions or whatever.
Sure. Thanks, Chairman Kamer and members of council, and especially some of the new members. So I haven't always had a chance to meet. This year, we took a little bit different approach to provide information to council. It actually stemmed from a presentation we did to the Summit County Prosecutor's Office to give them an overview of the services we provide. And typically, we would come to you with the numbers of people in each program, but didn't really explain some of the substance of those programs. And so the PowerPoint that you have, and I don't expect to go through the PowerPoint, it talks about the substance use disorder programming, the screening process, education and COG skills programming that is available in pretty much all of our programs. Some of it is dependent on how long someone stays with us. But we wanted to give you just a different look. We also included some pictures of the facilities. We've had tours in the past and offered tours every year, but with COVID, we obviously aren't able to do that. So we wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of what the facilities looked like. This year, I think we probably we don't have the final numbers for December, but we'll probably only be about 60% of the contract. Our counts in residential programs in particular were much lower this year than previous years because of COVID. Initially, we cut our bed capacity agency-wide by about 40% so that we could ramp up with PPE, put in place the social distancing as best we could and sanitation measures. And once we cut our beds, we've pretty much stayed at that level. Arrests for misdemeanors in particular, I think, are down statewide and certainly in Akron. And the courts aren't as active. And so that number of about 50 to 60% of our bed count is about where we're at. And so we've done all the things that we can. We've looked at the virtual treatment, virtual reporting, So some of what we do is still in person, residential, and even some reporting on the non-residential programs. But we're looking at some things that'll probably stay and kind of pushed us to do things a little bit differently. But it's still a people business. We're still working with clients, and certainly the need has not diminished. If anything, it's probably increased with the overdoses and people in need of services. So be happy to answer questions if anyone has them.
Thank you, Bernie. I appreciate it. I appreciate the information we get routinely throughout the year too. I don't have any questions myself right now, but I'll go to the raise hands functions, and I do see Councilwoman Samples, her hands up.
Thank you, Chairman Kamer. Bernie, I have a couple questions. You and I we have spoken on and off since COVID has happened, and I thank you for you all's transparency and what you're dealing with at the Oriental House. Have you noticed an influx from the courts as relates to inmates in Oriental House, where you're putting more people on GPS or house arrest because of COVID or anything of that sort? And that's question one. And question two, how are your COVID numbers looking?
Yeah, sure. As far as GPS, agency-wide, we've gone from about 600 clients to almost 1,000. That includes a lot of folks outside of the Akron area. But I think there is a slight increase from the Akron courts. One of the things we did I think it was probably a month ago, we revised our admissions process. We have now the ability to do an antigen test, so we can do some pre-screening. So if a person is coming from an institution that is able to quarantine and test, we'll bring them in and potentially put them in regular population. If they're coming from the street or from the jail, we'll test them. Assuming they're negative, they'll get to stay in a quarantine pod, if you will. And then we'll test them again in 5 days, which gives some period of time for if they've recently exposed. And it's not perfect, but it I think cuts down on the ability or the risk of infecting other people in the program. And we've been at that for probably, I guess, just more like 3 weeks or so. And we've had a number of people, if they come in and they test positive upon admission, we'll put them on GPS tracking for 14 days before they can return. So that I think is going to be helpful. And again, if they test positive, we depending on the facility, if we have the ability to isolate a positive case, we'll do that provided they're medically stable. If we don't have that capability, which in some of the smaller programs, it's a challenge, we'll work with the courts and put the person out on GPS. And that's with court approval, the GPS. As far as outbreaks go, was well reported. We had an outbreak back in, I think it was May, right when the bars opened up. That's when we had our first outbreak, go figure. And we had a significant number of clients at the Terrence Mann facility, I think 35 or so, with about 7 staff. Since then, we've had a few clients here and there, no major outbreak. Same thing with the staff. Now that the community spread has increased so much, we're finding that similar to the hospitals, where we're trying to make sure we have the staffing appropriate, because one person gets sick and then they have to stay out for 14 days. So we're working through those issues. We've been doing, I think, pretty well so far. The only other outbreak was at our CBCF facility. We had 7 out of 70. So our less than I guess mathematically, is that less than a 10% or a 10% positivity rate. So we were below the state positivity rate at that facility. And thankfully, all of the clients have had either very mild symptoms or were asymptomatic. We had a few clients early on that had some major underlying health conditions that were hospitalized. but they actually went to the hospital for those underlying conditions and tested positive, which is why we ended up testing the clients we have. So I think like the general public, we're similar kinds of issues going on. We continue with the masking. We're looking at providing, potentially doing KN95 masks instead of cloth masks. That's something we're considering because of the more the higher transmittable strain that may be out there. So we're trying to stay up with all the latest that the health departments issue. We were, because our residential facilities are chemical dependency licensed facilities as well. The staff in those facilities were eligible for vaccinations, and that was a couple of weeks ago. So they have another week or so before they'll be eligible for their second round of vaccinations. And the health department's been wonderful. I say that in every public meeting. I know they have a really tough job, but we've really appreciated their guidance through all this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'm going to the hands raised function first. I do see Councilman Malik. Go ahead, Councilman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Rochford. Really appreciate the presentation. And as Councilwoman Samples mentioned, really appreciate all the transparency and on COVID since the pandemic started. I know that Summit County Public Health definitely has a difficult task with regard to COVID, but so does your institution. I guess one of the things that came to mind was not just the precautions that you all are taking, but sort of how has the pandemic impacted the work that Oriana House does, and in negative and positive ways, and then are there ways in which you see that impacting Oriana House's services even post-pandemic?
Sure, thanks for the question. It's been remarkable how adaptive our staff have been. We did have a number of furloughs early on because of the numbers. We just didn't have the clients to service. Any of the staff who we've had the opportunity to call any of them back, we still have less staff than we did at the beginning. But for the most part, they've done really yeoman's work because they are true heroes, especially our residential staff, but all of them. It has changed a lot of how we conduct things. We are doing more, like I had mentioned, virtual, and I think that will continue. In some respects, that'll be a positive at the end of this. Our telehealth and telecounseling, but also even non-residential clients can report virtually. So as long as they're doing well, they can Zoom in. And some of the things that are positive with that is we can ask them to, show me your house, show me where you're living via the Zoom capabilities. So that's some of those things are going to be positive, but we are still in the people business, and that's been a challenge to try to make sure we're reaching out to the clients when and how they need us. I don't know if that answers your question, but there will be some changes moving forward.
It does answer it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions? Hands raised function. I'm looking at Sarah. Do you see anybody?
I don't see any hands raised.
All right. My suggestion is, if it's okay with the committee, I definitely, Sean, if I have your attention, I definitely don't want to suspend the rules on something like this. I like to put it on consent agenda so we have a week case we have more questions for you or Bernie.
Consent is perfect.
Okay, I know usually we've done that in the past with consent agenda. So, with that, I'll leave it up to the committee. What their recommendation would be.
Motion for consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay. Well,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Bernie. Thanks for the updates throughout the year that you usually send over to city council. And thanks, Sean. I appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Yep, thanks. We're adjourned.
Okay. Our next committee of the day is the Health and Social Services Committee meeting. Those committee members are Amobian, Freeman, Baylor, Neal, and Lombardo. I believe all members are present. We're just waiting for some to connect to video here.
Let me know when they're connected.
Sure, sure. Councilman Neal, can you hear me? There he is. Okay, we're ready when you're ready, Madam Chair.
Why don't you do roll call for me, please?
Sure. Amobian,
Present.
Freeman,
Aye.
Baylor,
Aye.
Neal, here he is, and Lombardo.
Here.
All committee members are present.
May I have a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes have been approved. We have one item on the agenda for the day, and I'll read it in. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Akron Municipal Court to enter into a contract or contracts with the County of Summit Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board in order to provide funding for certain specialized dockets, programs, and declaring an emergency. I believe we have Ms. Jackson Montrella. Is she present, Sarah?
Okay, she was with us. It looks like we lost her.
Anyway, is she, can you find her? These dollars are essentially used to cover, is she on?
She is not, and she's not in the waiting room either, but she was just with us. So I
Okay.
don't know if you want to give her a minute to try to rejoin. I can try to reach out to her as well.
Okay, why don't you do that?
She'll be right back.
Okay. why don't we just move on, Sarah, and she'll catch up. Essentially, these dollars are coming to us from Ohio Mental Health, Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, and they are to subsidize the specialized dockets that we're very fortunate to have. And these dollars will be used to manage offenders needing addiction, treatment, mental health services, and other services. And the dockets are mental health court, family intervention court, recovery court, and valor court, OVI court. And I think most of you probably are familiar with a lot of these specialized dockets. They really keep a lot of individuals out of jail and steer them more toward treatment that they are in need of instead of incarceration. And as they go through these programs, all of them, I think, have graduation ceremonies and really have been quite keeping people in treatment and sober and involved in mental health care and counseling. So they have been quite successful. And we're talking about $285,000. And I do believe that these dollars are coming from Columbus through the Adam Board, or Adam Board sent them to the city to help subsidize these programs. Is Ms. Jackson on yet? Sarah?
She is not yet.
Okay. Are there any questions? We may be just in time for her to answer some of them. Are there any questions? No questions? We can, I don't know if they want, probably consent agenda would be fine, but I'm not sure. Is anyone here from the law department?
I'll make a motion for consent.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments at this point? You see the hands, Sarah?
There are no hands raised that I can see.
Okay. Seeing none and no questions. All in favor of consent?
Here she is joining right now.
She's joining right
Yes.
now. Ms.
Thanks for your
Jackson?
patience, everyone. She's still connecting to audio. Here she is.
Hello, Ms. Mantrella. I think I've stolen your thunder, but you can repeat it. Just do an overview, a highlight overview if you like, please.
Sure. Sorry about that.
We know that these are 5 dockets.
5 specialized dockets and now
Go
6
ahead.
grants for specialized dockets. And now we have a 6th, the Human Trafficking Coalition Court has been certified. So there's an additional $75,000 that's been added. This is a subsidy to our payroll.
Is it added to the 285,000 or
Yes.
included?
Yes. It's added to the 200.
It's 300.
That's correct.
Oh, is it included in 285 already?
No, it's not. It's an addition.
Oh, okay. So it's 300 and what's my math? 360,000?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that what that is?
360. Yes.
Correct.
Oh, 360,000. Okay. So we want to know, I don't know if anyone had any questions. We were just talking about how successful these dockets have been in steering people from incarceration and into treatment and all of those things. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, just the same sentiment that we're very proud of the specialized dockets, and it's been able to streamline or direct people into treatment services and help people get the services they need so they're not coming back through the court. They've been very successful. So this is a grant that I would say we're probably in our 6th to 7th year getting from the state. It's a pass through the Summit Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board.
Mm-hmm. We were going to do consent agenda. Is that okay? That means we'll vote on it next week.
Thank you. If that's good for the group.
Okay. So all in favor of consent?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. It's on the consent agenda, and thank you very much. That's the only item we have today. Is there anything else to come before this committee? Okay. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Right.
Thanks, everyone. Our next committee meeting for the day
Is this the last meeting, Sarah?
Public Utilities and Green Committee meeting. And that will be
Okay.
Councilman Swirsky, Councilman Freeman, Connor, Samples, and McKittrick. All members are present except for Swirsky, so Councilman Freeman will be chairing this meeting. Councilman Freeman, we can get started whenever you're ready.
Okay, are we live? We ready to go?
We are.
Okay, very good. I'll call the Public Utilities and Green Committee meeting to order. And if we could please have a roll call.
Swirsky, Freeman,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
All committee members are present except for Swirsky.
If I could have a motion to accept the meetings from the last minute, the minutes from the last meeting. Try that.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We have one ordinance coming before us. This is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee after publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts for repairs and or improvements to the West High Pumping Station and declaring an emergency. And who do we have to address us? Mr. Little?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This West High Pump Station, as we call it, is a little water pump station right next to the Urban League on Vernon Boulevard. And what this pump station does, it pumps about 3 million gallons a day. It pumps about 3,800 feet west up Vernon Boulevard, and it fills the tanks at Shabandi Hill up there. So what we're going to be doing is rehabbing this station. We're not totally rebuilding it, sir. We're going to be putting new doors, new roof. The bones of the building are still pretty good shape, even though it was constructed in 1918. It has some good structure to it. We're doing repairs at the Shabandi tanks also with this project. This pump station has two 60 horsepower motors and one 40 horsepower motor. So the entire electrical system will be upgraded to high efficiency controls and VFDs, which is variable frequency drives, to control these motors. Because what happens now, as the water tanks fill and then the sensor sees that, it shuts the pumps off. Well, with these new controls, it will actually lower the RPM on the motors. And as you know, when you're starting to stop in a huge motor like that, it's a big inrush of current. So this will actually save money in the long run, plus extend the life of this system. So with that, I will take any questions.
Okay, questions for Mr. Luddle from committee members? Questions from any other council members that might be with us? What would be your pleasure, Chris?
Consent is fine, sir.
Okay. We have a motion for consent.
Motion for consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. McKittrick, second by Ms. Samples. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, very good. We'll see that that item is placed on consent. And as usually, Chris, say thank you to everybody that's doing a fine job keeping the water flowing.
I sure will. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. I believe that's it, and we are adjourned at 2:55.
That is our final committee meeting of the day, but please remember that the capital budget review will begin at 4 o'clock. Thank you.